Hello again and welcome to Law Channel, part of Festiva to Go. It is a pleasure for me to be here today and to introduce to you again one of the members of the prestigious law firm of Levin, Rojas, Camaso, and Rick. Paul Levin, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Eno. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the object of the Law Channel, the Law TV? What does it consist of, and what are we trying to bring to the public?
Certainly. So when we heard that Festiva was interested to actually make law and information that's needed for people to have entertaining and accessible, we immediately said, absolutely, we want to do this with you. And we realized that at any given time, you might have 24 different types of law that people don't think about until it affects them. They have a relative that has a criminal problem. They have a friend or somebody that has an immigration problem. They want to bring mom's aunt over to this country because she's getting older and they want her to enjoy the kids and the cousins. Or they have a labor employment issues. They got fired for inappropriate illegal reasons. So, I mean, immigration, labor and employment, criminal law, mass torts, there's health issues out there that are affecting people. They don't even know the food they're eating and the drugs they're putting in their body are hurting them when they were putting them in their body to help them or enjoy them. So 24 different kinds of law, 24 hours in the day, the Law Channel, the Law News, and getting your information from actually people who know things. The lawyers know about the law, but there's subject matter experts that the lawyers should actually learn from. And there's people whose lives it impacted. So Festiva, with the way that they've conceived of making a show, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, informative, entertaining, and accessible to people, that's the concept.
Exactly that. You described it perfectly. And one of the things that we're going to be touching on today is the immigration. And who hasn't been touched by all the immigration laws that have been passed throughout the years and decades. Most of us in this country are sons or descendants of immigrants, and we're here to touch today on some of those facts and why we are here. Paul, describe to us or tell us a little bit about the role of the courts and the lawyers with the immigration system and the changing of these laws, and how does it affect every one of us?
So first of all, when we talk about immigration, we're talking about something that affects every aspect of our society. The family matters, obviously, I just mentioned, making sure you can unite families and reunite families, making sure that people who want a better life for their future family, generations to come, have access, have a process, and can avail themselves. People who don't have the luxury in time to take advantage of a process that takes years because they're fleeing persecution, to have a process in place to protect them and give their generations to come an opportunity to live in this country. I know that my grandparents came here as immigrants. I know a lot of other people too. It affects so many different people. But that's the extent of what people think about with immigration, and it's incorrect. So we don't grow as a society economically unless we have enough people to do the jobs and the work. So we have a program. The government has a program to allow people who are non-citizens and may not want to become citizens the right to be here, to work here, to obviously abide by the rules here, but to contribute to society. So it impacts not just picking crops in the field, but great leading scientists, great leading authors, great leading people of all kinds of professional backgrounds and not professional backgrounds. We bringing into this country hundreds of thousands of people who may become citizens now or in the future. There's a path for that. If we don't do this, then we're not the melting pot anymore. Then we're not a society that can grow. Demographically, we stay the same. It's really nice. I mean, your family, I believe, is from...
I'm an immigrant. Can't you tell by my accent?
Well, I love it. And you bring great food and culture and
right.
dancing.
And cigars.
And cigars. And so if we didn't have that, then I mean, Miami
you told me to
wouldn't
make
be
it
Miami.
entertaining.
I think
Okay.
you are making it entertaining already.
I tell you what, Paul, let's go right now into, and later on I have some questions for you. some hot questions. So you guys that are listening, you guys that are looking at us, I have some tough questions for Paul, and I'm going to excuse myself before I make him, but I have to make him for you. Friends of mine told me, when you have the lawyer in front of you, I want you to ask him this. So be ready for that one. But right now, let's talk about the rights of immigrants. What are the basic rights of an immigrant when he arrives in this country?
So it's classified as what your status is. So it's very technical, very regulatory. If you come here with a visa, it's one thing. If you come here without a visa, it's another thing. The system is very complex. The immigration laws, it's like the tax code. You need a lawyer to navigate through what they mean and how to utilize them and stay, within the bounds of what's possible. You're also interacting with judicial machinery. You have administrative law judges. So if the lawyer and the executive branch that you're dealing with from the Department of Justice doesn't agree, you have a law. You have a lawyer who's now a judge to basically decide whose application of the law is right. Is there any exceptions? Can status be adjusted? These things are really important. So you need a navigator or a guide to get down stream in order to accomplish whatever your objective is. You mentioned earlier the idea about the courts and the law. So you have lawyers, you have judges, but you have some really important decisions that have come out that have established some of the rights. So, for example, in the late 1800s, there was a Supreme Court case that came out that allowed, I believe it was a Chinese immigrant, the right to basically come here and then contest and argue that, even though they didn't come here illegally, they came in through almost a slave trade to work on railroads, but they were able to contest and try to regularize their status. Decades later, a Supreme Court decision issued which said that if that immigrant's, legal or non-legal immigrant's child is born here, what are their rights? So now, under current law, if your child is born in the country, even if you're not here legally, that's an American citizen. And then there was another Supreme Court case, because the Congress didn't think of all these things when they passed the laws. They came and interpreted it and said, well, not only that, but if your child is here, even illegally, and the parents haven't adjusted status or haven't found a path to legal immigration, that child needs to be educated. That child has the same rights that a U.S. citizen. Now, I know that's highly politically charged.
Oh.
Some people aren't going to like that because why should we do it? But on the other hand, you're not going to have a kid living in a closet, not going to school, not speaking the language. They're never going to become, culturalized. They're never going to.
It's not beneficial to our country.
It's not. It's not. And so we don't have to argue whether that's right or wrong. What we have to do is abide by the law. So the law now says that child is entitled to education. And look, if that child grows up and they can establish their, that they haven't been in trouble, they've followed the laws, they did everything they possibly can. One administration or another, they're going to adjust the laws, and the lawyers will try to find a way to help them, gain status, even if it didn't start out the right way.
Okay. Hey, Paul, another question is, of course, Latin America is the region where most immigrants are coming to the United States from right now. But if you go back 15, 20 years ago, the folks from Argentina didn't have any problems getting a visa and coming here. Folks from Venezuela, which is right now one of the poorest countries in Latin America, they have no problems obtaining a visa. Who determines what countries get a visa, or folks coming from that country? Who determines these things where it makes it hard for the country, for the citizens of that country to get in, and other countries not so?
So, very good question. Again, somewhat politicized, but there will be immigration experts that will come on this show and will give you, with precision, the answers that you want. I don't hold myself out as an immigration expert. We're a lawyer. I guess in theory we could say we practice immigration law and do one case, but that's not the purpose of this channel. The channel is to get the people who actually live it day in, day out. I'll give you a general high-level answer to your question, just to not avoid it.
You're a good lawyer. Go ahead.
So the Immigration and Naturalization Act, and then the regulatory enactments, which are kind of delegated to the agencies that enforce it, they come out with a quota system, and I believe they probably adjusted total population by country. They do it so that there's diversity, and you could argue that one country or one area of the world shouldn't have as many and not. This is also a lobbying political discussion because there are reasons I guess they developed these quota systems. What's fair in life is not what's usually obtainable in the law. So you need a really good lawyer, whatever the situation is, to make sure you can get the maximum amount of fairness that the law is going to allow.
Okay. Now, I promised you a hard question before. And this
Wasn't that it?
No, that was not it. This is the tough question. We all know that we're divided in this country. Liberals, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats. There are folks out there who are entertaining the idea of suing the government because the government, according to them, has violated their constitutional rights by allowing folks to come in through the border, and they're not protecting the Constitution of the United States, and they allow everybody to come in, therefore impacting their pocketbook. And you mentioned it before, we need to build more schools, we need to provide for these kids, we need to provide for the elderly, medical care and all that. And they're saying, I'm going to take this to court one day and saying, in 2020, when they opened the borders, that impacted my personal life because I had to pay more yearly than any other years in my life because of the immigrations or the immigrants that came in through the border. Do they have a case?
Lawyers really do like a good fight. I mean, I like when the government can be accountable to an entity, citizen or non-citizen, that has certain rights that are cognizable or recognizable. I think it's a great idea to allow the government machinery to defend itself, to explain itself, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. DACA, you guys have heard of DACA?
Sure, the dreamers.
The dreamers. So, I mean, I know it's highly politicized, but you have generations of people who grew up speaking English better than, my grandfather when he came here to this country. And they're contributing members of society. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're laborers, they have families now. And what are we going to do, rip those people away and send them back to the country that they don't even know is their home country? We tell them it's their home country because they're, genetically or historically aligned with them, but they're actually more American than most. So I think, but that was a law, and that was a law that Congress got together, and they had people on the right, people on the left. They said, we got to do the right thing. We're going to pass this act. And now you've got millions of people that are regularized. And then you had an administration before this current administration that was trying to limit those rights, circumscribe or overturn those rights. And, I think it was a really good thing that you had the Supreme Court basically come out and say that that was an arbitrary and capricious attempt to take away rights that members of Congress on both sides of the political spectrum decided to give those people.
Okay, good enough. But we're going to continue, and this is my next question. We all know what rate immigrants are coming in. Some call it, some more conservative folks call them illegal aliens, others call them undocumented citizens, others call them asylum seekers. The question is, in whatever group we place them, what are their rights? What can the families of those folks do to get them at least some sort of protection and where they can go and work and become regular citizens?
It's a great question. It's one of those answers that it'll be wrong for a certain segment of the people who heard the question, heard the answer, and didn't realize that there are particular circumstances, the way they got here, or the access to the way they accessed the border, or what they filled out or didn't fill out. There's no one size fits all answer here. It's a situation where your rights could change from month to month, the way they're interpreting the application of the laws. In every situation, since so much is at stake, your freedom, your right to stay here, you have to get the answer from somebody who's competent and aware of the correct options. There's usually more than one way to do things. Lawyers can find a good way, a better way, and a bad way to do things sometimes. Hopefully not in a legal way. But if you got to have your advice from the people that are reliable. And that's a problem. There's a dearth of information. Some people don't even retain immigration lawyers because they say things like, "What does it matter? It's not going to work anyway." Well, they're ruining their opportunity. Or it doesn't matter because I've been working here. I came in illegally. Nobody's bothering me. I mean, I have a business already. I pay taxes. Who's going to bother me? Well, guess what? You're at risk. You're at risk. Everything that you've worked for, everything that you've established, can in an instant be changed because you had an opportunity to do things that you didn't know it. You didn't think it was important, and now. Who knows? It's a traffic stop. You didn't even show up for court, and now you have a criminal failure to appear. The next time you're stopped, you're in the hands of the immigration authorities. If you have an administration or an activist Justice Department, which is not just worrying about like felons, now they're worrying about anybody. And so now you're at risk. You're on the radar, and you could be subject to a deportation hearing.
That plays right into the next question, the path to citizenship. I mentioned that I'm an immigrant myself. When I first got to this country, I remember my father saying, "We got to behave in a manner that you be proud of for the rest of your life, because if you mess up, if you do anything illegal here, you're not going to get your citizenship." And we wanted our citizenship. We wanted to become members of society so we could vote and integrate ourselves into what we wanted to do. We wanted to be Americans. My question is, can you describe a little bit the path to citizenship? What should a person arriving at the shores of the United States today do tomorrow, not to put any obstacles in between?
So again, a very broad question. It impacts people differently. If your immigration or path to immigration legalization or adjustment of status is going to be through a family member or a relationship of somebody who is a U.S. citizen, it's going to be one type of thing. And in general, you can say don't commit felonies. If you owe taxes, pay your taxes.
Don't take red lights.
Don't text on the phone. I mean, there's a lot of things that are not going to probably block your path to citizenship that you do, that everybody does. But the most important things, my grandparents, they used to say, keep your nose clean, very similar to what you were told. Yeah. So I guess it was the same concept. Maybe in some way it's good to always live your life that way, even once you have the citizenship or the green card or whatever it is. Maybe everybody would be nicer to each other that way. But interestingly, if your path to immigration regularization is through employment, it's going to be one set of rules. And you're going to have to line up your background with the type of employment, and then there's quotas, and there's categories of different kind of employment-based immigration regularization. So you don't want your information from a billboard or a cursory review of a website. You do want your information from a lawyer who practices this and who has legal liability to you if they give you bad advice. Because if it disrupts your life and you lose everything and you have to go because they gave you bad advice or didn't help you, I mean, their professional reputation is on the line, and you want that. You want them to have skin in the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Law TV, and also there's a phone number on the screen you can call for any type of question. I guess, Paul, to conclude the program for today, this is my last question for you. What do you think the hopes of those folks who have been working here for 10 years, whose kids are going to school, who have adapted themselves to the American way of life, who go to church every Sunday? What are the hopes for an immigration reform in this country, one which hasn't happened since 1982?
We need to figure this out. Living in a state of suspended animation is not good. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for the society. And so, we may not agree on everything, but what we do need to do is we have to provide clarity. We have to provide a pathway. Everybody can't have everything they want here. And I think it just shows the immaturity of the political constituencies on both sides. It's really awful. We need some reasonable people. And I'm optimistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Good to hear from a regular American who's optimistic about immigration reform. This concludes the program for today. Thank you, Mr. Levine, for being with us. Remember, Law TV, if you got any questions, the number is right on the screen. Thank you for being with us.